Swift, brave, and utterly remorseless, Genghis Khan's warriors were among the fiercest of their time. But what rules were these terrifying soldiers made to live by? Genghis Khan was able to conquer kingdoms and empires with far larger urbanized populations than his own. This was because he mobilized a much larger portion of his kingdom than other civilizations. Some sources suggest that all Mongolian males between the ages of 16 to 60 were liable for military service, while others give an age range of 15 to 70. Either way, it's clear that a large segment of Mongol society were expected to take up arms for the Khan. That's not to say that all these men actually went to war, of course. What it does say is that the Mongols recruited more soldiers per capita than most other peoples. Historian Timothy May gives a figure 1 in 7 Mongolians becoming a warrior, in a population of almost 665,000. And Genghis Khan's army at the time of his coronation in 1206 was an impressive 95,000 strong. It is particularly telling that there was no term in the Mongol language for soldier, since it was simply a part of every man's being. The most important thing to Genghis Khan was victory. One world history textbook provides this quote attributed to him. "Man's highest joy is in victory, to conquer one's enemies, to pursue them, to deprive them of their possessions, to make their beloved weep, to ride on their horses, and to embrace their wives and daughters." With such a single-minded attitude, it's no wonder that Genghis Khan was willing to throw out traditional Mongol military techniques when needed. An incredibly versatile leader, Genghis frequently made use of foreign ideas and technologies. For example, when his empire began to expand and it became clear he needed to conquer cities, he quickly adopted cutting-edge siege technology for his own ends. This attitude was taken up by his successors, who used naval warfare, rockets, and early gunpowder weapons to achieve victory. Despite this, results were sometimes mixed. The Mongols after Genghis Khan launched naval invasions of Japan, which failed due to storms and major resistance. Ultimately, the core of the Mongol military machine, and what made Genghis Khan's warriors so legendary, could be summed up in a single word: cavalry. The Mongols were the nomads of the grasslands of Central Asia, and so depended on the horse in their daily lives. By law, all Mongol children were taught horsemanship. The typical Mongolian breed of horse today is 4.6 feet high. It is the same breed that was used by Genghis Khan's warriors. The characteristic that made it so useful for Genghis Khan's armies was its endurance. These horses raced across the vast Eurasian steppes, often withstanding temperatures ranging from -40 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Crucial to Mongol success was also the use of metal stirrups. The use of stirrups enabled Genghis Khan's warriors to ride farther, to stay in the saddle in battle, and to effectively use their bows while on horseback. Even today, the horse is a point of cultural pride in Mongolia. The Mongol Derby is modeled on Genghis Khan's relay postal routes. It sends riders across a 621-mile circuit in under 10 days, changing horses at 25-mile intervals.
Laura, how do you feel right now?
I just ain't thinking anymore, I just get on the horse.
Don't think, just go.
This race is the longest equestrian endurance event on Earth. To be one of Genghis Khan's warriors, you needed to be an expert bowman, especially while riding on a horse. The weapon of choice for Genghis Khan's warriors was a composite bow. In its day, this was cutting-edge technology. The Mongol warrior's bow was constructed of a combination of materials built off a wooden core. The bow contained animal horns and sinews and had a unique shape, being recurved and therefore very powerful. A talented archer could shoot up to 500 yards and pierce the enemy's armor. What made Genghis Khan's warriors most effective, however, was their ability to integrate their mastery of the horse with their shooting skills. Mongol warriors typically carried a longer bow to shoot from the ground and a shorter bow to use while on horse. Genghis Khan's warriors also had a range of ammunition to choose from poisoned arrowheads to arrows that could whistle in order to communicate at a distance. The arrows themselves were fletched with eagle feathers, and a warrior typically carried 60 into a battle. Mongol horse archers used their weapons for long-range harassing tactics, but also for deadly medium-range engagement. As a testament to their skill, warriors could shoot from the saddle backwards at a full gallop. Even today, Mongolians take great pride in their skill at bow making and archery.
Why do I like to make bows? I think that it's inside my blood.
Genghis Khan and his warriors were the product of a nomadic culture, a perfect lifestyle to prepare them for war. Cultural events were used as training exercises. The Nurg, or Great Hunt, was at its simplest a hunting circle. However, Genghis Khan reinvented this pastime to become a serious training exercise. Over a vast distance, an army of organized warriors chased and encircled all the animals in a given area. Once a game was trapped, the circle started to close in until a killing field emerged. To give you an idea of how large a scale the Nurg was, the initial line of hunters could span a distance of about 80 miles and involve multiple units of 10,000 men each. At the point of almost complete contraction, there was utter pandemonium among the entrapped animals, ranging from lion to bear to deer, all bellowing, roaring, and bleeding. The Khan slew the first animal before Mongol nobility took a turn, and then the soldiers. 9 days of feasting followed the slaughter. The Nerg took intense coordination and was therefore run as a military-style drill. Communication, martial skill, and organization were crucial to a successful hunt. Warriors who did not do what they were supposed to do were punished, some by execution. And of course, the circling tactics of the Nerg were put to devastating use when the Mongols went to war. Genghis Khan was a military genius who used the strengths of his people to deadly effect. The Mongolian army relied heavily on scouts, often riding up to 70 miles ahead of the main body of troops. If these scouts came into contact with the enemy, they would alert the Mongol army, who would move to encircle their prey just like in the Nerg. This tactic was often accomplished through use of strategic retreats. A detachment of warriors engaged the hostile force, then suddenly turned and withdrew. This baited the enemy army into pursuing them, or to put it another way, it's a trap! After the enemy's lines were stretched out, the wings of the Mongol army snapped shut. The final blow usually came from Mongolian heavy cavalry armed with melee weapons. These methods were fruitful for Genghis and his successors. The Mongols were actually outnumbered in most battles, but they won anyway due to their superior tactics. In almost all cases, the Mongol warriors led by Genghis Khan earned no wages. Yet each soldier could expect to become rich under the Khan, and it all came down to booty. Genghis Khan would often decree that all warriors would receive a share of the spoils of a war, albeit only after the enemy was completely annihilated. What this meant practically was that loot was not acquired in a free-for-all. Everything was collected and distributed after the fact. If a Mongol detachment was chasing down a fleeing enemy, they could rest safe in the knowledge that their fellow warriors would divvy out loot fairly, thus removing the temptation to break off the pursuit. To enforce this rule, the Mongols had a judicial body made specifically to ensure the lawful distribution of booty. One odd feature of Genghis Khan's war machine was that it was an equal opportunity employer. In 1206, Genghis created the empire's first law code, which established the rule of law in his empire. Known as the Yasa, this law code enabled Genghis Khan to promote some form of equality in Mongol society. Its core tenets even transferred to the army, in which warriors were promoted based on skill and valor. A commoner could achieve high rank in the empire by merit of ability alone. This wasn't just limited to men either. While hardly free in the modern sense of the word, Mongol women were given remarkable power in comparison to other societies of the age, with some even acting as political advisors to the Khan. This equanimity was related by the Persian historian Ata Malik Juvayni, who wrote of the Mongol army, "It was like a peasantry in the guise of an army, all of them, great and small, noble and base, in time of battle becoming swordsmen, archers, and lancers, and advancing in whatever manner the occasion requires." As Genghis Khan's empire grew, he recruited from other peoples too. While they were not Mongol warriors in the strictest sense, serving as footmen and auxiliaries, they were critical in allowing Genghis Khan to achieve his imperial ambitions. Genghis Khan was one of the most successful generals in history, not just because of his tactics on the battlefield, but also because of the terror he inspired in his enemies. The Khan led the wholesale destruction of the Khwarezmian Empire, which included extensive looting, destruction, and acts of genocide. Genghis himself was happy to feed the belief that he was much more than a mere mortal, likely striking terror into his conquered foes.
There's room for the belief that his birth was supernatural and that heaven presided over his birth.
Notably, Ata Malik Juvayni quotes Genghis telling the vanquished defenders of one city, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." History tells of numerous instances in which Genghis Khan and his successors slaughtered entire populations if they did not surrender. In one example, the city of Genghis resisted Genghis Khan's armies for 6 months. Even after the Mongols breached the city's walls, the citizens resisted. In order to deal with this unacceptable situation, the Mongols diverted a river by building a dam. They then flooded the city, killing the remaining defenders and laying Genghis to waste. In another battle, Mongol warriors used captives as human shields while besieging a city. In total, approximately 40 million people were killed by Genghis Khan's conquests, particularly in China and Iran. With all that death and destruction, you might think that living under Mongol rule must have been horribly repressive. As strange as it sounds, however, the Mongol Empire embraced fairly tolerant attitudes, at least toward religious expression. While the Mongols practiced a form of shamanism, they felt it was wise to let the people they had subjugated practice their own religions. In fact, they even went so far as to promote various religions with the belief that it would make the empire easier to rule. Genghis Khan also provided tax relief for favored religions such as Buddhism. Genghis himself favored Taoism because it was believed they could prolong the Khan's life. While he never converted to any religion, his relationship with a Taoist sage led to the creation of one of the major primary sources on Genghis Khan. Keep in mind, of course, that this tolerance had a limit. Absolute obedience to the great Khan was paramount. The most important rule for Genghis Khan's warriors was obedience. The Mongol armies were organized in a strict hierarchy. Punishments were doled out to enforce military order. If a warrior dropped his pack or bow, for example, then the warrior behind him was required to retrieve it or be punished. If a soldier was found to be missing gear, then the officer in charge of that man was punished. Minor offenses were dealt with by a cane beating, with the number of strikes rising as the number of offenses increased. More severe offenses resulted in execution. This included sentries falling asleep at their post, plundering without permission, retreat without permission, and desertion. Friar Giovanni di Plano Carpini admired Mongol warrior discipline, writing, "These men are more obedient to their masters than any other men in the world, be they religious or seculars. They rarely or never contend with each other in word, and in action, never. Fights, brawls, wounding, murder are never met with among them." The Mongols built the largest contiguous empire in history through their skilled warriors. When the empire fragmented not long after Genghis Khan's death, the inhabitants of the conquered regions took pains to try to wipe the memory of the Mongols from history. Yet they failed, as the conquest of Genghis Khan and his warriors had changed the world forever.